And we are live. Welcome, folks, to episode 3662. Cleverly, I guess, or creatively or funnily called Edible Ops Behind Enemy Lines. What we're talking about today is, well, it's a form of one of my favorite subjects, statist jujitsu, right? Statist jujitsu. In other words, understanding how to use your opponent's aggression against them, how to turn it back on the state. We've talked about this in many forms for entrepreneurship and many other things. But in this case, the state may not be the official state. It could be. Everything I'm going to say today will apply to cities and townships and boroughs and villages and whatever that have certain problems with people like growing food in their front yard, because what a horrible thing that you would do. But the biggest problems, even in cities and counties that maybe mess around with this a little bit, it's almost never like Inspector Dumbass is driving through your neighborhood and goes, "Oh, I see a celery plant. Let me go cite this person." No. We know the natural enemy of liberty, don't we? We know exactly who is the enemy of freedom and creativity and everything that doesn't fit in a perfect box: the modern Karen. The modern Karen, and Karens come in male and female form, and they pick up the phone and they call the department of making you sad, and then they come make you sad. And sometimes they call the department of making you sad. The department of making you sad goes, "We're not going to make them sad for this." And then they call the HOA board if you live in a place with an HOA. And that's what we're really talking about. Like, it's so bad you have an HOA, or you have a neighborhood even without an HOA that runs to the man so often that you might as well have an HOA. But this show will be good for everybody. What we're going to talk about doing today is growing things in an ornamental fashion. That's really what we're going to talk about. Some of you might be like, "I can do whatever I want, but I don't just want to do what Jack's talking about today in my front yard. I want to do it in my backyard." Some of you might have, like I do, 3 acres or even more, or maybe a little less, but still a big piece of land. And you might be like, I like having my kind of agricultural look over here, but it would be kind of cool, like just around the front of the house where everybody comes in, to have this really beautiful landscape and yet have at least something in there, or some portion, maybe half or more even, be edible. Be edible now, be edible at some point, be something that finishes. And then when we change over to the next season, it's edible. There's all types of ways to do that. Now, let me tell you how this subject came up. As you guys know, last week I was gone pretty much all week. I did a live show for you on Monday, and then there was an expert council show on Thursday, but that was pre-recorded. By the way, one of the flashbacks last week, or rewinds last week, didn't publish the audio file with the article. And I was like, I guess I was in a hurry and I screwed up. But then I logged in the back end and it was attached, just didn't show up. And it says it was, properly attached. So I did the old internet thing, right? Which is turn it on and turn it back, turn it off and turn it back on again. I just removed the file and put it back on, and then it worked. So that's why that happened if you were one of the people that missed that episode last week. Anyway, well, I'm at LFTN 25 with Nicole Sauce. There was a gal that's living in the suburbs of Nashville, and she has this amazing backyard permaculture yard. And she's very new to this, but she just picked it up and did the right things the right way, learned a little bit about design. She's got some chickens back there. Soon it had rabbits. She's even growing a small plot of wheat, which is all the wheat that they need for their annual usage because they only use so much. She's growing vegetables. She's growing herbs. And somebody asked a question about, well, what do you do with the front yard? And she said, "I don't do really anything with it because Karens." And everybody groaned. And a few people kind of that also lived in suburbs, like, yeah. And Nicole kind of pokes me, right? And she says, "You haven't done a episode on this subject in a while." And I checked and she was right. 2017 or 2018 is the last time I talked about this. That doesn't sound that long ago, but 2018 is 7 years ago. That doesn't sound right, but it's true. Do the math. So I'm like, let's talk about this again. A lot has changed. A lot has remained the same. And I now, since I'm doing video, as I'm talking about the different plant school today, I'll be bringing up a slideshow that's just basically a series of pictures. So you can get some idea in your head. So if you're an audio only type person, which like 90% of the audience seems to be, this one you might want to just go to the episode and pull up the video and maybe jump ahead to that portion if you've already listened to it and get a feel for how these plants can be incorporated into very, very beautiful landscapes. And again, if you're doing it to dodge the Karens or dodge the county, either one, that's great. But man, why can't we make things look really beautiful? Maybe we have a little more freedom in how, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. Before we do that, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors of the day. Sponsor of the day number one today is Above Phone, where you can take back your privacy and take back your tech. You can do that with the Above Phone itself. You can do that with the Above Book. I have my new Above Book. I'm very, very happy with it. They also have tablets, and all of these devices allow you to break free of big tech's control of your data and tracking your every movement. And they have a ton of other advantages. And if you're an MSB member, they will give you $75 off any phone at Above Phone. And after you buy a device from them, you're like, it's a little bit different. It's sometimes a little bit different. It's a lot different when you're trying to first transfer over. They give you a free consultation to walk you through and onboard you onto your new device. How cool is that? Check them out today at abovephone.com. Remember, discount for MSB, but only if you put the code in. They don't know unless you tell them. All right, next up today is JM Bullion. You know, yesterday we did a show on Bitcoin. Pretty much it was all about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin will disrupt the financial system. Unlike a lot of Bitcoiners, though, and I've been in the Bitcoin space since 2012 and heavily since 2013, so I am all in all the way. I have not crapped on other forms of investing like real estate or entrepreneurship or silver and gold. I believe there's a place for everything in a well-diversified wealth portfolio. Silver and gold have been around for about as long as commerce has, at least modern commerce, with some form of monetary instrument. And they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But you shouldn't overpay for it. It's all the same. That's the point. So go to the company that's been supporting the show you love for over 11 years, gives members a discount, ships all orders free. And if there ever is a problem, which is very, very rare, I can talk directly to the president by email and usually get something done in a matter of minutes. Sometimes that's not quite the case because maybe he's traveling or something like that. But in general, if there's anything that goes as a hiccup that customer service hasn't taken care of, again, which is very rare, I can get it taken care of very, very quickly for you. And that's kind of my requirement to be a partner or a sponsor here at TSPC. On that, before I dive into this, I have some really cool news. I'm about to show you one of the most beautiful dogs you've ever seen in your life. This is one of Joel Ryle's dogs. And Joel approached me at the event. He's got some things he needs to do to wrap up the reestablishment of his homestead and business. He recently moved from Florida to Ohio. So he's willing to do something that he's like, I'm just not going to say doesn't do. I mean, never has done before and probably will only do it this one time. He's going to discount some of his dogs. Now, to be clear, these are not the fully trained protection dogs. He has a mix of some dogs available right now that are like obedience started puppies. So you're probably in the 12, 16 week range, something like that have been, taught basic things like stay, sit, wait, etc. And then he's got, and this is a real opportunity, what you would call a fully trained obedience dog. These were dogs that didn't have the aggression to really make good protection dogs. So the decision was made not to put any effort into bite work with them, but they have all the obedience that your protection dog. These are dogs that you could take, put a service vest on them and take them anywhere they let dogs in and not worry about having a problem. This is a dog, when you tell it to wait, you better not forget you told it to wait because it'll be there when you come back 2 hours later. These are amazing dogs. I have a dog that was a started puppy named Belle. We love her. She's an amazing dog. She's friendly. She's loving. And she's also very, very bold and very, very brave, unless the cat's around. It's like the only thing she's afraid of is the giant orange cat. Because I think she made a mistake with him one time and she hasn't forgotten her error. And she knows she's not allowed to hurt him. So the only thing she can do is avoid him. But there is a discount available for you guys on this. And there's a write-up at thesurvivalpodcast.com right now. If you have wanted to have a dog of this caliber and you've been holding out and hoping that someday an opportunity would come, it just came. These are not inexpensive dogs, but 10% off will help a long way with that. All right, so let's get on into this. I want to start off with, again, why we're doing this. We're doing this for two distinct reasons. We're doing this for some of y'all who you have to do it if you're going to garden at all in your front yard. And some of you maybe where you live, you even have to do this in your backyard. You have some sort of impediment, usually because of people who stick their nose where it doesn't belong and are worried about like how frequently your car is parked in your driveway versus your garage, or what color your freaking lights are, or something like that. And I used to kind of blow this off and then pull back from it a bit and just say, move, get out of that HOA. And I still feel that way, but I also know that right now, for many people, moving is economically harder than it's ever been before. And so some of you guys are kind of stuck in that situation. And again, it may be an HOA, or it may just be pain in the ass neighbors. So we're doing it for those people. We're also doing it for people that would just like either their whole landscape to just look beautiful, and they don't want kind of the more conventional gardening look to things, or that maybe want the front yard curb appeal, even if there's no requirement that they have it, because that's nice too. So it should work for all. And to get there, what we need to start with, though, to avoid the Karens, right, to avoid the Department of Making You Sad, is something I came up with. I call it HPOS. Okay? HPOS stands for HOA, Pattern Obsession Syndrome. And so many problems can be avoided if you understand anybody's or any groups or any community's pattern obsession syndrome. So when HOA Karen saunters down your sidewalk in her beautiful HOA neighborhood where she wants to protect property values, which basically means ensure that her children or grandchildren can never buy a house. That's what that really means. She's not walking down and going, I know how to identify plants. She probably doesn't know anything about plants. Maybe she knows a few different flowers or something like that. But she doesn't know if she's looking at Bermuda grass or Raleigh St. Augustine grass. And she doesn't know if she's looking at an ornamental sweet potato vine or a productive sweet potato vine or anything else. She doesn't know that calendula is a medicinal herb, for instance. She doesn't know the difference between like an ornamental kale or something like that and something like bull's blood red beet leaves sticking up out of the ground. No, what she's looking for is a break in the pattern. And understanding pattern recognition is really easy. If you had just a graphic, and it was like zebra striped, and all the lines were equal, and then in the middle, or not the middle, because the middle might make it look like it's unintentional, right? Somewhere in the graphic where it was supposed to go black, white, black, white, black, white, it went black, white, 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 black, white, black, white, black, white, continuing the pattern. This immediately catches the eye. This is the bruised thumb like I have right now, right? This is the squeaky reel. This is the rusty nail, the pop-up nail. You see it instantly because it doesn't conform to everything else. And so the first place to start in designing for any place where you might have this problem is to simply walk the neighborhood. Walk the neighborhood. Now, if it's a brand new neighborhood, at some point you're just going to have to emulate what conventional landscaping patterns look like and take a shot at it. But if it's an established neighborhood where people already have landscaping in, what you can do then is walk around and look at the patterns. How do the other people put in their little lollipop tree with their marigolds or whatever around it? What do they do in front of like windows and boxes? How do they manage, like if they have like a little walk path that goes down to their mailbox? How do they handle things that are planted in what we call the nature strip, which is between the sidewalk and the street, if they do that at all? How do they plant things around their mailbox? What are the popular things that are growing, and what type of berries do they have? A lot of neighborhoods, you'll see places where people are growing basically a shrub that's really a juniper species with a blue berry on it, or a red berry, or something like that. And so what that tells you is in this area, people don't worry about the fact that there's something that looks like a berry there. They worry about it not conforming to the pattern. So if you start planting things that when they fruit or berry will look similar to what they have, if you'll prune your tree into a similar shape to the other ornamentals, especially like dwarfing trees. And I'm going to show you some examples here in a minute of some things that you can do and use. And you look at how they place the patterns together. And then, I'm going to give you guys 20 species today, 10 annuals, 10 perennials. And that's not an exhaustive list. Most plants can appear beautiful, even to the pattern recognition crowd, if we create the right pattern. Some things are really obvious what they are, and you may not want to use them in the front yard, like a tomato. But you might be able to grow some hot peppers, especially when I show you the hot peppers I'm talking about today. And a person looking at it goes, oh, that's beautiful. They might even know it's a pepper, but they don't think it's a edible pepper. So Karen's not mad, right? That is how we are going to approach this. We're going to do it from a pattern recognition. Then you should know the rules. You should know the rules. The most powerful thing to use against a person who lives and dies by something like an HOA code is the HOA code itself. Well, it says right here on page 7 that you can't do this. Actually, what it says on page 7 is, boom. And this is why that conforms to this. And if you want to go call a meeting and see if you can change that, go ahead, Karen. But right now, there's nothing you can do. Piss off. Be nicer when you say it, but that's the general message. So some of these places, they literally have rules like what percentage of the front yard must be grass. Find out what that is, take measurements, and know. And then when you mark out the areas you want to put things in that aren't grass, make sure you conform to that. If you don't, reduce. And if you do, and there's lots of room left, start thinking about how you can put more in. But, give yourself a little buffer if you're under one that tight. Some even have like the number of trees. Some have restrictions on height limits of certain landscaping elements and things like that. So you need to know all the rules that apply to you because you live where Karens live and they wrote rules for you. And if you know all those rules and you understand the pattern, you can go in and put tremendous production even in a postage stamp front yard. And most of the Karens won't even know. And the ones that do, well, they can piss up a rope because there's not much they can do about it. And then you're definitely going to want, if you're going to do this, if you're doing any kind of lawn care maintenance, is switch to at minimum an organic lawn management program. So the reason I bring this up is I know most of the people in this audience, like, who's your lawn guy? Like, when they tell you, like, but if we don't let illegal immigrants in, who's going to cut your grass? And all of us are like, me, my kid, or my grandkid, right? Like, or the kid next door. We don't do that. But some of these HOAs are so strict, they literally require you to have a lawn care service. But no one says it has to be conventional. It can be organic. Or some of us are like, I need a lawn care service. Even if you take care of all your other stuff, like your edibles, like you only have so much time. Maybe you're very busy with work. Maybe you travel. And that's one thing you don't want to get away. So I guarantee you, wherever you live, if there's lawn care services, there are organic lawn care services. And personally, I would take the approach, if you need a lawn maintenance service, not a lawn care service. A lawn care service is someone that comes in and not only cuts and edges and cleans everything up and makes it look pretty, right? A lawn care service does that. A lawn maintenance service, right? When we're talking about the people that come in like True Green Chemlawn, like, oh, it's a little bit dingy over here, so we're going to spray some shit on it. So you can always just have someone do the maintenance if you're required. And Karen won't really know the difference, nor does she need to know the difference. You need to measure your working area and design in islands and edges, and again, stay within the rules. This fits the pattern. If you go through any neighborhood where you would even potentially have this problem, because there are neighborhoods where you could see, like, it just goes too far the other direction, right? Like, dudes have like cars in their front yard that haven't run in 10 years. I've up on blocks. And maybe twice a year they weed eat around the damn thing. So in that case, you don't need to worry about it. But if you go to anywhere where you have your typical beds and gardens and all your flowers and your, I call it the lollipop tree. That's everybody has a postage stamp front lawn, and they put one tree and it's always dead center. They have no concept of framing and edges or things like the rule of thirds. But even if you're going to do some things differently from that pattern, you don't need a lollipop tree. You can put your tree off to one side or something like that. And you can factor in, like Karen's never do, what solar aspect you have and what that's like, do all that. But look at how these other islands are made. Like, there's very common patterns. One is you have a driveway that comes down to a sidewalk and it forms a right angle. And they take it to a soft line, like a quarter circle, depending on whatever size they want, right in that corner. That's a great place to grow stuff. Is it a perfect place to grow stuff? No, but it is a place that when you do it, if you use the right types of plants and maintain them the right way, then you are going to fit in. So look at, like, in your neighborhood, are people doing circles or kidneys? Are they generally coming off of hard lines with softening edges, or are they more formal doing straight edges? Emulate that. Emulate that, and they will shut up. Jason says, no way I could live in town again, much less an HOA. Same. But we got to help people, Jason, because not everybody's gotten out like we have, right? And then I really recommend that you install drip location, install at least irrigation all locations, especially in this environment, including if you irrigate the whole front yard. But some of your like grow bed areas, if you can do it, drip irrigation or my modified drip irrigation method would be best. However, my method with white pipe sitting on the surface probably won't work for you. But drip irrigation is something a lot of landscape companies do. So even if you did it yourself, it should make Karen happy. But irrigation will help you not have sad plants. Sad plants break the pattern. Breaking the pattern brings down the wrath of the Karens. It's a very simple thing to understand. Make your yard look vibrant and beautiful and never sad, and emulate the pattern. And then use lots of colors and textures. Again, we're going to get to that very, very soon. Plant non-edibles with your edibles. Don't try to make every single plant an edible. Like there are a lot of edible, there's a lot of like decorative kales now, and they work really well in certain times of the year. You know what grows really well in those same times of year? Lettuces, chards, beet tops, all kinds of things. And as pretty as some of these plants are, I'm going to show you in a bit, they do distinctively stand out more when it's only them. But if we take things like some of these ornamental kales that you really wouldn't probably want to eat because they're just not that great for the table, and we intermix, let's say, Lanacinta kale, right, the dinosaur kale, which I have a picture of for you later, and maybe some rainbow chard in with that, it looks like it's all designed together. And it is if you design it. So by including some things that we don't think of as vegetables, including some things that the Karens are growing, so they see that and they don't know anything. Most of these people don't know anything, but I have that plant and I have that plant. Okay, they grow the same stuff as me and they go on their way with their little Karen cart and their box of Franzia wine to go home and pet their cat and be miserable because that's where they need to be, not bothering you. Next, grow annuals throughout the season with succession planting. So one of the things you have to be careful of is, you grow a bunch of lettuce, okay, and Karen's happy. But then you come and you harvest the lettuce. Now there's a hole, right? And there's nothing in the hole. Well, this is a bad practice anyway because you removed it. You didn't replace it. What's coming next? Weeds. Now Karen's really mad and so are you. You're unhappy. If you're ready to go with the next succession of something that fits the Karen pattern and provides for you right behind that harvest, and you're doing that succession planting, you're going to be in a lot better shape as a food producer and as a Karen avoider at the same exact time. If you're going to put in trees and shrubs and bushes, think really hard about using dwarf or semi-dwarfing rootstocks. Or if you're putting in full-size rootstocks, be militant with your pruning to maintain a tree that you can actually manage. Unless, like, it's totally okay to have a big giant tree out in the front yard, maybe a big front yard. And if you're not going to have any problems from, having a fruit tree, which it bugs me that I even have to say that, right? Like, I feel about this topic almost as strongly as I do about, like, the whole transgendered crap. Like, why are we even discussing whether or not it's okay for a male to go into the woman's bathroom? Why are we having a conversation whether or not it's okay for you to have an apple tree in your front yard? But if you want to maintain a manicured lawn and do maximum production, you probably don't want a full-size apple tree anyway. So you can prune and control even a full-size rootstock tree with pruning only, but you have to be militant about it, especially in the establishment phase. Eventually, it will kind of dwarf because it gets used to being held in this, and it's kind of like a giant bonsai tree. Give away some easy-to-grow pretty plants like rainbow chard. Give it to Karen. Don't even tell her she can eat it. You know, I always start more than I need. I always end up with more than I need. And if Karen's walk and say, hey, do you want some plants? Even if she says no, she's probably less likely to cause you a problem now because you offered her something nice. And do this for your nice neighbors too, not just the Karens. The more people you can get using your plants. See, what we're really trying to do is we can get, let's say I'm growing 20 edible species in my front yard. And I have 5 that are really pretty and really easy to grow and really easy to maintain. And I can get 10 of my neighbors in like a 4-block area growing those 5 plants. I've just enhanced the pattern recognition to the positive for me. Well, I saw that plant there. I saw it there. I saw it there. And these people, I'm good. It's all about maintaining appearance and pattern appearance. Build retaining walls, like for deeper soil, is a great way to go, because that gives you a place where obviously I have to plant something here. I put this retaining wall up or what have you. You know, I brought it up to the level of like a front window or something or what have you. Like whenever you put in these hardscape structures, just be, you know, sure it's what you want to do. It is expected that you will plant into them. It also, a lot of times, most front yards slope downward, and they make some things a little more difficult to do and make look the way the pattern is expected to be. But when you start putting in nice looking retaining walls and things like that, then the people that want HOAs actually feel like you're enhancing the neighborhood. And so you're getting what you want, which is a deeper place to cultivate really great soil and food, and they get the aesthetic look that they're looking for. And again, I don't have to be forced into this for this to be a good idea. See, the reason what I'm telling you today is such a good strategy, I know you shouldn't have to do it, but it actually results in a really productive, well-managed system at the same time. One of the reasons that people that are stuck on small properties produce so much food so effectively and so beautifully is they don't have a choice. So they don't get ADD syndrome, right? They don't like, oh, I'm going to plant this over here. Now I'm going to run over here and plant a tree. Now I want a food forest. Now I want a hugel bed, right? They have to manage every square yard of soil, maybe every square foot of soil. And if you do that, you get really good results. That's why Mel Bartholomew created square foot gardening. If you manage by the square foot, you're going to have really good management. And a small property, small front yard where you have to maintain. What are we talking about? What's the permaculture principle here? The problem is the solution. The requirement for high maintenance results in high maintenance, which when done with intention results in high productivity. You see how that all comes together? Utilize edges, right? Utilize the edges, whether you created them with a retaining wall, whether it's a sidewalk, whether it's a driveway, the wall of a house, the edge of a fence, especially like most homes today that have a 6-foot privacy fence. One side has a gate that opens and one side doesn't. So we might treat those two sides vastly different. One side, we might put in sort of a path that creates an edge with something ornamental that's actually edible on both sides of the path, or maybe edible on one side, non-edible on the other, whatever fits best. The other side we have a little more freedom with. We're not worried about opening that gate, but they're both edges. A wall, we might espalier a tree against a wall. It looks beautiful. Karen is happy. I'll show you a fig tree done that way that I don't see any Karen in the world getting upset about, right? Because it has a unique, classic, old English garden manor house appearance to it. Use those edges because all the productivity is on the edge anyway. But on the other side of it, because of that, we have an innate ancestral pattern recognition of abundance on edge that is pleasing to us in our minds and our souls. Because I keep calling them Karens, and they are, but really these people are broken people by the system. They're the ultimate in conformity. And because of that, they hammer down on this. But all people really, I believe in their hearts, would love to live in the type of ecosystems we're trying to grow. They just don't know how anymore. They've been artificially damaged. Okay, they've been made into somewhat, at least some piece of them has stopped being an authentic human, has become a synthetic human. This is a way to actually start to rewild even the Karens, to bring them back by giving them something they understand, and then eventually maybe with the right ones, sharing with them. giving them something, letting them understand like this incredibly nutritious food that you're always, because these people are always the ones that go to Whole Foods. They're always the one that go to Central Markets. They're always the one that buy organic. They're the same people. They're always the ones that talk about food deserts. And you try to grow food where they are and they don't want it. If you show them how it can be done the right way, we can turn the Karen into a non-Karen, to an anti-Karen. We need anti-Karens and Karens coming together to become something stronger, like matter and antimatter, creating energy if we can pull it off. And then utilize large containers, right? The pot advantage, basically, right? So you can grow things like dwarf trees and blueberries and many other things in pots. And you can often plant around them. I have a very old video from my place in Arlington where I didn't have as much land. And I have these pots and they're growing like a dwarf peach tree, but around them they're growing nasturtiums and marigold and calendula and chives, all in one pot. And the beauty of that is if that's kind of one of your first steps and the Karens become a problem, a hand truck and you can move it somewhere that maybe they'll shut up about. But you also have the ability to move it, right? You also have the ability to move it based on seasonality. So maybe you want this particular pot that's growing certain things to get very little sun in the summer. It's too much heat. So we can back it up into a place where it gets shade 60% of the day. But in the winter, in the fall, and early spring, we want it to get more sun. Sometimes just a couple of feet changes everything. So there's a lot of power in using large containers. They're also easy to maintain. And again, if there's a problem, easy to relocate. All right. With all of that said, let's get on with it. And oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, there we go. I've got, again, 10 plants for you that are annuals and 10 that are perennials that are ideal for this situation. And right now, I'm not going to read the question, but we have a question. I'm starring it. I've had one others, and that's how to ask the question if you're in a live stream. Put the word question in all caps. I will start and get to you at the end if you do that. If you don't do that, I promise to miss it because I'm blind in one eye. All right. So for annuals to grow in a system like this, herbs, period. Like herbs in general, you can get away with lemon balm. I have a Karen story maybe I'll tell about lemon balm one time. And she loved her lemon balm, but she didn't understand how it worked. And we had to dig it up and we replaced a bunch of it, but it was going to take time for it to fill back in. I literally bought every lemon balm plant I could at the nursery. And we were doing cable work. We had to dig the area up. She loved her lemon balm. She was a Karen. But purple basil. First of all, it's beautiful. It smells beautiful. And it is an easy, super easy plant to grow. It is delicious. It tastes like any other good. It tastes like sweet basil, like the big Genovese basil. And in a salad, it is just kind of, just blows up, especially if you have some edible flowers that are light colored, like an orange or yellow nasturtium, or like the white blossoms that come off the locust trees that are blooming right now, or the pretty flowers that come off chives. Like combined with those colors, they just make a boring salad pop. And this is not something that's going to incur the wrath of any Karen, as long as you follow the pattern recognition to go along with it. This is a beautiful plant. And as I'm going through this, I want you to start thinking about how the textures can work together and how they, like, this is going to be tall. So we've got a dark, tall plant. Don't think of it as basil. Think of it as a dark, tall, purple ornamental that will grow quickly and grow tall with large leaves, providing shade to something that maybe wants it, but something that's contrasting. A brighter, lighter color to the front of that is really going to set off things. Think like a landscaper, right? So moving on, rainbow chard. Rainbow chard is one of the greatest weapons against the HOA Karen that has ever been developed as a plant. It does not in any way look like a vegetable to the unknowing. It really doesn't. It looks like something somebody designed for this purpose. You have yellows, you have whites, you have greens and reds, and you have like pinkish red, you have like yellowish red, and then you have like the bright, striking rhubarb red varieties. Mixing these colors together, using them as kind of a tall, upright plant that'll never get as tall as that basil. This would actually go really beautiful with that basil behind it, because the basil if you have good soil, basil will get 2-3 foot tall. You might want to prune your basil a little more shrub-like. Well, that's just harvesting. And with these in front of them, you've really got something going on, right? Now, moving on. Very similar in form and color to chard, and in the same family, beets. Now, you would think like beets, like that's almost like you're pushing it. That's a little bit, Ozark redneck there. I'm going to eat me some beet greens. Karen doesn't know. Beets can be beautiful. By the way, if you have a store and they sell organic baby beets, I'm just saying you can go grab them and stick them right in the ground and they'll start growing. It's like buying plants for the price of food, but the food's always cheaper than the plant. You ever notice that? And when they're fully mature and you've used their greens for long enough, you pull them out of the ground. You paid for them when they were the size of like a big marble, but now you got a great big beet. And my favorite beet to do with that is golden beets. If you don't like red beets because of the red coloring and all, while the stems are good for the Karens, the golden beets taste delicious and they don't bleed all that color and what have you. But definitely beets and chard are fantastic options in this. Next, we just did a whole show on this. Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes you can grow just about anywhere as long as you're cognizant of what you're doing. Why? Because not only do we have pattern recognition now in the little plant island that all of these neighborhoods have, right? We have professional landscapers all over the country cramming ornamental sweet potato vines into every landscape that they put in. I think the second most, like it's probably the second most common plant used today by landscapers next to grass. And it just occurs to me as I say that, like all these people resistant to you growing food in your front yard, do you see the other side of the pattern here? What did I say about them? They actually all want to do this, but they can't because they've been made synthetic. What do you think all this landscaping really is? Why would somebody be so opposed to you growing some peppers and lettuce in your front yard, and then they turn around and put all these ornamental plants in their front yard? Well, it looks pretty. Yeah, but what are they trying to emulate? Why don't they just have flat green grass? Why are they putting in all these textures and shapes and colors and heights? They're trying to emulate natural systems, but yet it's like controlled chaos. Anyway, as they're doing that, most of these landscapers are wise enough to know that since a lot of things, we talk about these upscale neighborhoods and all, the landscaper's not just planning everything, they're maintaining it. And they want their job to be easy too. So if you want your job to be easy, if something ain't growing there, put ground cover there. That's what grass is. Well, sweet potato, if anybody's growing it knows, like the upside of it, it grows really, really fast, the greens. So they have all these ornamental sweet potatoes. Well, they don't really look that much different than more productive varieties of sweet potatoes. So just incorporate sweet potato into your landscape. And then when you harvest it, that's just a succession period, which you would be doing anyway. Next is calendula. Calendula is just one of my favorite flowers to grow. It's an incredible medicinal, and it's a pot herb. The flower and the leaf are both edible. I shouldn't have to say this, but this one's Karen proof, right? As long as you have it's flowers. It's just flowers. Now, part of fitting in these situations, right, is understanding your seasonality. There are some of you, and you guys live in places where if you plant calendula, like it will make your full season and it will be healthy. When I plant calendula and it comes up, and about right now, it's just like, I am the king of all things, or it's a flower. Let's call it the queen of all the garden. I am beautiful. I am healthy. I smell good. And give it another month, and the heat really comes on, and it will start to wane away. So any of these plants, no matter how much they fit in, it would be no different than if you planted an ornamental that began to die and you didn't do anything about it. But I mean, other than that, in the words of Homer Simpson, it's a flower. Some of you will get that breadcrumb, some of you won't. On that with flowers, my favorite flower of all time to grow from an edible standpoint is nasturtium. And they come in all colors, all forms, all leaf types, and everything I just said about calendula with your climate applies here. I can grow calendula right to about June. It starts to yellow. And the best thing for me to do at that point is give up and yank it all out and replace it with something. It'll hang on for another couple of miserable weeks, and then it just turns yellow and dies. But while it's here, it's beautiful. It tastes like pepper. It tastes like if you ever had watercress, you've never tried a nasturtium. They're in the same family. It tastes like the sharpest, spiciest watercress you could possibly imagine. And that's the flowers and the leaves both have that flavor profile. This is a money crop if you can grow enough of it. Chefs love nasturtium and nasturtium leaf to use like a microgreen, even though we're not talking about them being a microgreen here. So this could even be, in some instances, a profitable crop for you. A clamshell of these to a high-end restaurant would command quite a few bucks. I'll just say that. But again, the fact that they have leaf forms that are huge, leaf forms that are small, they have dwarfing stalk, they have more sprawling, they have more bush-like, fit that in and use, like this picture here is all like a bright orange variety. Use multiple colors of anything. One just looks better, right? One just, they just look better when you are using these multiple colors and textures. You get a better look overall. But if you were to sell this, that's actually going to sell better. Chefs love to put things like this on salads, on the sides of plates and stuff like that. Let me tell you one of the things, and somewhere in West Texas, you're saying, what is he saying? Someone spell it for me, please. What am I saying about what? Nasturtium? I'm not going to spell it out for you, but nasturtium is what I'm talking about right now, but I don't know if you're asking about something else. This is a fantastic plant. Let me tell you one of the ways that I use it, okay? I am a big fan of snails, like escargot snails. I have to make them on the grill because my wife says so, and I'm a smart man. And I grow nasturtiums. The leaves are huge. I mean, they're like the biggest leaves I've ever seen on a nasturtium variety. And I will do is I will cut 2 leaves and put them together. So you're doubling your thickness that way. And I'll take 2 of the escargot snails and set them on those leaves. And I cook them on the grill in a frying pan, just a little bit of butter and garlic, because that's how they taste the best. They just need to be warmed through. They're canned, so they're already cooked. Then I'll take like a couple garlic chives and a couple regular chives and maybe a little sprig of dill, and I'll roll these things up like a spring roll. And they are freaking amazing. You get the snail, if you've never had a snail, it kind of tastes more like a clam or a mussel than anything else, except it's really, really tender if you get the good quality helix snails. Then you get the garlic that's in the butter, plus you get the bite from the chives. You get that little bit of licorice thing going on, but it's not that strong because it's blending with all these other flavors. Of course, salt. And then you get that heavy spice bite of the nasturtium. It is freaking just awesome. Just awesome. The other thing about nasturtium, if you're like the person like, I can't eat hot stuff, but you kind of like it, but you can't do it. Things like nasturtium are kind of the road for you. Nasturtium, horseradish, things that are hot that way. The big difference is you eat, a serrano pepper raw and you can't handle heat. 15 minutes later, you're still like, I can't get rid of it. You get hit with the heat of like a horseradish or a nasturtium or a watercress or something, and it's like, bam, and then it's gone. It only lasts a few seconds, and that is a really kind of cool way to get some heat in your life. Speaking of heat in your life, I feel bad for the people right now who are on audio only that can't understand what I'm talking about if you've never seen plants like this before. Edible hot peppers. What is the word I'm looking for? What are we talking? Decorative, right? Hot peppers. Ornamental hot peppers. Ornamental is the word I was looking for. I just brain farted there. There are several different versions of these that are really, really common. All are versions of basically Tabasco type peppers and bird's eye peppers and a couple others. And they will produce peppers that fruit in yellows and purples and reds and greens, and sometimes more of a variegated type. I was just with a good friend of mine and his wife last night, and my wife. We had dinner together, really cool place, and we were talking about one of the appetizers they had for us was a really awesome crab cake. And we were talking about the spice in there, and it was cayenne. And I said to him, have you ever seen a fish pepper? And he's a big plant guy too. And he's like, no. I pulled it up because that's beautiful. They're not even an ornamental pepper, but it would be seen as an ornamental pepper, especially if you added something that is more to the point like these. Now, all of these are edible. All of these are very spicy. All of these make incredible like hot sauces or dried crushed peppers, etc. And again, I feel bad for the people that can't see what we're talking about. It isn't that freaking awesome looking, all those different colors popping. It looks like at a distance, they look more like a bush full of flowers of different colors, especially that one kind of exaggerated egg-shaped version of them that looks like a flower that hasn't opened yet. And I am marking all questions as they come in if you do them the way Legacy just did. All right, moving on. Lettuce. Now, if you plant iceberg lettuce, it's pretty obvious what you've done. And this picture was just to show you the contrast. We have like a red frill, a green leaf, a red leaf, a green frill, and then a lighter red frill mixed together. Now, instead of doing that in the lines like this person did, if those are interplanted, it starts to look like nothing but an ornamental planting, especially if we mix some non-edibles in with it, some non-edible ornamentals in with it, maybe do some nice spacing. And this is a perfect plant to use in your transitions into your cooler weather when some of your other plants are kind of done for the year. So don't be afraid of typical, vegetables like lettuce, especially select different colors, different textures, different shapes, different leaf types, and be creative about where and how you plant them. Next up, scarlet runner beans. Now, these are big, long, vining beans. And you know what they look like to the person that doesn't know? They look like trumpet vine, or they look like hummingbird vine, which is really what they kind of are, not in that they're the same plant. But if you plant this stuff, you will have hummingbirds if they are in your area. Every time I plant these, once they flower, there's little hummingbirds, little ruby throats, and they are just all over it. When you do this, you do need to think about where you plant it. This is ideal for like a wall trellis, or remember we talked about the fencing, and on the one side of the house, maybe there's not a gate, and you don't want to plant like a bush or a shrub up against that fence because that will probably accelerate the rot and will be in the way, and you'll have to destroy it when you eventually have to replace that fence, unless it's like a permanent material that won't ever rot. Then maybe you go ahead and you do something a little more substantial. But this will grow up on that fence, protect it from the winter sun, and then will be able to easily be taken down, especially if you have a place where the sun really hits on that side of the house really hard. It will give that fencing some protection. If you have a wall of your home, you can put some sort of trellis on for these and trellis this up. Like, not only does it look beautiful, now we're shading the wall of the house in the summer. We're actually helping to keep the house cool, and it produces some of the best beans you will ever eat. Additionally, if you live in the South and when your season ends, if you prune these things off at the ground level and put about 4 inches of mulch on them, they're actually a perennial. They just can only handle being frozen so much. If the ground freezes solid down to their level, it will destroy the tuber. They actually leave a tuber in the ground, and they will come back year after year if you have a mild enough climate, if the tuber is deep enough in the ground and is protected with some mulch. So if you can get that going on, then you've really got like this ongoing forever source of food and beauty and attracting pollinators and even making Karens a little bit more friendly to you. How about kale? Everybody knows about all the edibles or all the decorative kales. Like, I go to these shopping centers and stuff, and I always see the kale that's kind of more shaped like a head lettuce, and they have all these different colors and all. And I'm like, you could just grow kale. We could like have all of these, shopping malls, strip malls, golf courses and shit could be growing food that could actually be given to people that don't have enough money for food. But instead we grow all this ornamental shit. But the pattern's there. And especially if we intersperse some of these I'm not going to say they're not edible. All those kales are edible. They they don't taste that great. They're not really designed for that. And this particular picture, you can see this kale plant has some really yellow leaves on it. If you're in the HOA zone, get rid of those when they show up. Good for the plant anyway. But notice how this is exactly what's done there. You have kind of like I don't know what that plant is, like this frizzly, purpley fire colored stuff. And you have this this variegated green and white frizzled plant. And then this kale growing right in through it. That can go right under the nose of the carrot. That can go right under the nose of the carrot with no problem. Hey, Alabama says peppers will come back if you cut them down and mulch them. If you're in lower Alabama, they will. Where I live, it gets just a little bit too cold for that. But I have been able to overwinter beans. But he's right. Peppers are a perennial. Another hack is you prune your peppers really well at the end of the season. Dig them up, put them in a pot, and bring them inside, overwinter them, and put them back out. There's a bunch of ways to do it. But yeah, they are perennial. A lot of plants that we grow as annuals are actually perennials. If you go to St. Augustine, Florida, there are the towel peppers, which are similar but in a different shape, but similar in flavor and heatness to a habanero. And that's like the city pepper. And in general, they're not replanted. They just survive in the St. Augustine winters. And I mean, they're in concrete planters all through Old Town St. Augustine. So yeah, he's absolutely right about that. Eddie Carter says, I have a red pepper in a pot that I carry in and out each year, 3 years old now. And he said, I got that from Jack many, many years ago. I love seeing stuff like that. Things that we dropped on you back, 2010 or something, and people are still using it today. It makes my day. So we're going to move on to perennials now. And I'm going to start off with one that people really might not think of, dwarf pomegranate. Now, you have to be like zone 7 or higher for these to work out for you. But they flower and they fruit in the cool of winter. Like, it'll depend on where you are, whether it's like right through like Christmas time or it's really more like really, really early spring. But they're actually very cold tolerant. They're just not like hard freeze survival, right? So 7A and above is kind of where these go. But most people have, no matter how many pomegranates you've seen at a store or how much pomegranate you've seen chefs use on TV in the form of pomegranate molasses for every damn thing under the sun, they've never seen a pomegranate bush or tree, or shrub is a better term. Well, a full-size one gets really big. And to be productive, you need to let it get really big. But a dwarf one, I've got some dwarf ones, they're about 4 foot tall. And you can prune them and keep them in like the 2.5, 3 foot range, and they'll still be quite productive. And the flowers on them are absolutely gorgeous. And once the fruit sets on them and begins to ripen, the fruit is even pretty. And they have a really good ability to hold on the plant for a long time so that we don't have to worry about storing them. So we can leave them. Okay, that one's got to come in now. And even while the fruit's on the tree, it's Karen friendly. And there are dwarf pomegranate varieties that have white flowers instead of red flowers. They both still produce mostly red fruit, but that gives you the ability to vary color and texture yet again. Excellent plant to use for this. Next up today, dwarf peach. Dwarf peach is probably best planted in a large containers that you can move. That's how I always grew them when I grew them in the suburbs. But it's a beautiful plant when it's just like when it's dormant. It has a certain shape and form if you shape it right, the way a peach is supposed to be shaped. That's very appealing. In a dwarf peach in a pot tends to get kind of gnarly and thick, again, like a bonsai, but a bonsai that's 2.5, 3 foot tall versus a little bitty bonsai tree, and you can maintain it like that. Then they put on buds. They're pink. They're beautiful. Then they put on flowers. That's beautiful. Then they leaf out, and they have this weeping appearance. In some ways similar, I guess, to like a weeping willow appearance, or maybe more like, if you know what, it's very toxic if you eat it. People plant them around oleander. They like, imagine an oleander in a weeping form. That's a lot of what they remind me of. And then when the fruit set comes, that's pretty too. And if they're in a pot and you have squirrel issues, they're easy to locate somewhere else when they're close to ripe but not ripe. Because this is what I found with peaches and squirrels. That squirrel will leave the damn peach alone. until it's a couple days from being ready to be picked. He'll pull the peach off. He'll eat it and be like, oh, this isn't good yet, and throw it down and do it again. I had a squirrel that I had to shoot in Arlington with a Gammo because he was taking every peach off the tree. I'd go down and be 10 peaches laying on the ground, half eaten. And so he got to go on the grill, and Charlie and I ate him. Or no, actually, since it was Arlington, that would have been Blackie and I ate him, and he was delicious. But dwarf peach is another great option here. Blueberries. There's a lot to be said for blueberries in this situation. One, they're a great container plant. Two, they're great, like when you build those retaining walls and you put your own soil mix in, they're great for that. And here's why. They want a quite acidic soil. If I try to grow blueberry here, anything outside of a container or a completely managed raised bed that's been pushed to the acid hard, and I have to maintain it there because even the water that comes out of the ground is alkaline, they look really good until the first heat stresses them. Then they look like you dumped a gallon of piss on them and they've burned from too much nitrogen and they die. That's just what happens. So the container thing alone is great because you have total isolation and control, and you can maintain, just like some azalea fertilizer or something to maintain that acidic soil profile will help you a lot there. Pine needles can help some. Everybody says that, but pine needles do not acidify soil as much as people think. Pines grow in acidic soil, so where pine needles are, the soil is acidic, so people make a connection it's true, it's just wrongly interpreted. So they're great for that, but it's also a beautiful plant. There's low and high bush blueberries. There are pink lemonade blueberries that actually, when they're ripe, they're pink instead of blue. The flowers are beautiful, and they generally turn a brilliant, beautiful red leaf in the fall as they're deciduous and one of those leaves fall off. So they're just an attractive plant year-round, and they're easy to maintain the size and shape of, and they can be very, very productive if you'll manage their soil acidity for them. That's kind of the big thing with blueberries, maintain that acid soil profile. Here's one that many of you have probably never heard of, and if you had, maybe you did from me. Feijoa. Now, this is a 7A and up, and you're better off 8 and up in your USDA zones. It's also known as pineapple guava, but it's not a true guava if you talk about like the guava fruit. It's a delicious fruit, but it has a very, how can I put this, like suburban friendly leaf pattern. The leaf looks a lot like the hollies and things like that people plant. Shiny green. It doesn't have the points on it, but the leaf shape's almost the same. And then it puts on this flower, and if you're watching the video, it's just a gorgeous flower. It kind of reminds me, every once in a while you look at a flower and you go, I think I saw that on a planet on Star Trek, right? Like there's certain flowers like the python snake bean, which is actually a gourd that I grow. They have a flower, not like, it doesn't look the same as this one, but it has that like otherworldly appearance. Bright reddish pink, huge pistils, stamens sticking up out of the flower itself, and the flower petals dropping down. You could probably plant this in Karen's front yard for her, and if you maintained it for her, she would thank you for the beautiful flowers and wonder what those things are that show up later on it, and she'd be happy right up until she found out she could eat them, right? This is a Karen-friendly plant if there ever was one. If you look up Feijoa in the landscape, you will find dozens and dozens of articles about using this plant as a landscape plant, with maybe an aside, it also produces edible fruit. So landscapers all over the country are already using this plant, and a lot of them are putting these plants in places where when the fruit matures, it drops and it rots in the ground. But they are freaking delicious. They really are. And I'm going to give you a bonus if you live in a warm climate, 8 bordering on 9 and 9 and above, loquats. Loquats are also another great plant. And if you have really deep soils, you can get away with them into like 8 moving towards 7 as well. They kind of fit this same role, though they have a very different floral appearance from the flower, but it's a great plant. This is a fig in this image here. And for those that can't see it, I'll try to describe it. So this fig and this is from Lee Reich, who I'm going to actually talk a little bit about him later today as well. I had him on the show, God, I guess 10 years ago. Espalier. And this is a very popular French and English technique. And it was used in a lot of the old manor houses to grow fruits, a lot of times stone fruits like plums and peaches and other fruits like pears that needed a warmer climate than where these people were growing them. They weren't growing them in a place where it got so cold they would die, but they were growing them in a place without enough heat for them to effectively fruit and be productive. So they came up with this technique of basically training the tree flat against a wall. And of course, you do that on a south-facing wall or a west-facing wall, and that wall just picks up tremendous solar radiation. And that extends the growing season, and it makes the growing season earlier, and it holds more heat over, and that tree will be more productive. And so the way you want to do this, particularly with this type of tree, is to train it like a low grapevine and then train verticals up. Some people train espaliers where you come up like this one and go out, but your central leader comes up. You have a second tier, like a four vine grape plant when you do it in a system like that. And then you have a lot of control however you do things. But with a fig, this is like the perfect way to do this. It's also a great way to take those tips at some point and make more fig trees and sell them to Karens and say, you know, for $1,000, Karen, I'll make you one like this. When she has money invested in it, she won't complain anymore. But if you look at that, even though that's up against a greenhouse, so that's not in the environment. But imagine that on your typical suburban brick front of a house, that area where there's lacking in windows, how beautiful that would look. And then landscape some of these other plants that we talked about underneath it. And most people are like, I can't grow figs. I'm in Chicago. Well, there's actually a fig called Chicago. Guess where it was first cultivated? With the right overwinter protection, most people in the United States can grow figs. John Willis is growing figs in Tennessee. There's a guy near Allentown, Pennsylvania, with like 75 different varieties of figs in a half-acre backyard that overwinters in USDA Zone 6, Pennsylvania, and it gets damn cold there. So anyway, next up, you know, we talked about herbs at the beginning, but now we're on perennials. How about chives? And I would say garlic chives and onion chives both fit this very well. Incredibly hardy, beautiful plant. If you think, again, let's go back to pattern. When they're not in flower, what plant do people plant all the time in shady areas where chives do well that has the same form? It doesn't look like it, but it has the same form as chive, which is a clumper with long leaves shooting upward and kind of coming out fountain-like. Monkey grass, mondo grass, right? It's the same leaf form as mondo grass. My father-in-law, my wife's dad, he had a very shaded backyard, and he had mondo grass clumps everywhere. It did fantastic. It could have easily have been chives. And chives are really versatile. Like, no one wants to make a loaded baked potato without chives. But even a steak, man, you just finely chop a bunch of chives and throw them on there. And then garlic chives are even hardier and easier to grow than onion chives, though I kind of prefer the flavor of an onion chive. So chives, and when you let them go to flower, like in this picture, they're absolutely beautiful. And when you can let them go to flower and let some of the flowers go to seed, but the flowers are incredibly delicious in of themselves. I love when my chives flower. We always... Well, I didn't plan on making a salad, but hey, look, the chives are in flower. I better do it while I can. And then you've got another great pollinator attractant and a repeller of many pests. So interplanting chives is good for integrated pest management. So you start to see that like many of the permaculture principles that we want to plant and design on anyway work really well in this unique particular environment. Next, we're going to go on to daylilies. Most people don't realize, like, daylilies are actually edible. And they are edible as a blossom, and the tubers are edible as well. I won't go deep into that. But we're back to Homer Simpson. It's a flower, right? Wow, Dad, how'd you do that? It's a flower. You can't really have a neighborhood with people growing flowers and people are going to complain because you planted daylilies. If your HOA is that bad, yeah, you got to get out of there. I mean, really, I don't even understand why that would come up. But this is one of those things, like this is a dual purpose. This really is, for most people, it is a ornamental. That's why it's grown. But it's a fantastic edible as well. And how about roses? Well, it's a flower. What are you going to do? Tell me I can't have a rose garden? Geez, they have that at the White House. But why would we grow roses? Well, if we pick the right varieties, we get really big hips. And they are an incredible source of vitamin C. They're one of the few reliable high sources of vitamin C that we can grow outside of like zone 9 and 10 in the United States, where we can grow citrus. So we've got the ability to grow, but they are a medicinal. And the hips can actually be used to make things like jellies and jams and flavor things like mead. I made a rose hip mead one time that was like amazing. One of the best things that I've ever made as far as alcoholic beverages in my life. The petals can be used to make rose water. The petals can be used to make tea. The petals can be used to infuse flavors into things like meads or wines, as well as the hips. And there's just a tremendous amount we could do with a rose, and they are about as care and proof as anything gets. I'll put them with daylilies in that if you do not have the freedom to grow a rose where you live, you really need to get out of where you're at. I mean, I admit that it's harder to get out of HOAs now if you need to actually move with the current economy, real estate prices, and higher interest rates than it's been in the past. But I can only do so much for you. And if you can't grow roses, I don't know that there's anything else I can do. How about that for beautiful, right? This is a plant known as Nanking cherry. And everything I am about to say about Nanking cherry will apply equally to a plant called Hansen's cherry. And which one should you grow? Well, both of you can if you're in the right part of the country. But basically, if you are in a cooler part of the country, then you want to probably grow Nanking. Nanking is a varietal that comes from Japan and Korea. In the cooler regions of those areas is where the originator plants, the wild plants that this came from, are from. And Hansen's cherry is actually a sand plum. It tastes like cherry, very small plum, but they get used like a cherry. Hansen's will do well in the south. Hansen's will do well in poor soil, sandy soils, blackland prairie soils like where I am. Nanking, you can keep it alive, but it's really not happy. So if you live in just a little bit cooler, like, you know, if you're up in like Tennessee North and go across the country that way, Nanking's going to do really well. When I was in Montana with Dave Jackie, when we did the Helena food forest for the city of Helena, we walked around and we didn't actually, it was a food desert. Shockingly enough, Helena, Montana, you wouldn't think. But we did find some people growing some edibles, and we found quite a bit of the Nanking cherry. And everywhere it was growing, it was doing fantastic, even if it was ignored and neglected. And we were walking around like, it doesn't seem like anybody's going to care. And we were all sampling, and they were delicious. The Hansen's cherries are a little bit more tart. I've used the Hansen's more for like meads and fruit wines and things like that. But with a little bit of sugar added, they make fine jellies and things like that. Both of them also make really amazing beers, especially like in an imperial stout. So you have like a cherry imperial stout. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. But it's beautiful. You've got a tree that when it flowers is just gorgeous white blossoms. It's small. It's diminutive. It's easy to prune. It's really a bush. The berries are beautiful. So all of these are things that we can actually grow right in the belly of the beast. Or as I said, edible ops behind enemy lines. This last tree, I wonder if anybody can even tell me what that is, because it's just pruned in a form that you may not have ever seen it before. So I'm going to wait a little bit and see if anybody, once we catch up to the live stream, if you are like mostly looking away and working, switch your tab back right now and look at this tree and tell me if you can tell me what this tree is. And for a minute, I'll kind of go off on other things, and I'll come back to this tree. You know, remember in the end, the key is to stay in the rules and stay in the pattern. It's not a fig. It's not a fig. Eddie says a fig. Right? Stay in the pattern. If you identify the pattern and emulate the pattern and use the type, not even just the 20 plants I gave you today, the types of plants. Look at the plant and say, where would this, do what you should do anyway. Where does this best fit in the landscape with the overriding pattern that you have to emulate to keep everybody happy. Because yes, if you go and you put 4 straight garden beds in a front yard and you grow a conventional vegetable garden, even though I think you should be able to, I understand when Karen gets mad now. I get it. I know it's stupid. I know she shouldn't, but I know she knows other Karens, and they're all like, what is that? What is that? Do we have the Beverly Hillbillies living here, or what the hell ever? But if you Jesse got it and Aaron got it. Mulberry. Let's come back to that for a second. That's a mulberry. In fact, that's a dwarf mulberry. Mora alba isai. I grow the hell out of this plant, and I let mine like go more kind of crazy. But you can train them to a single trunk, and then you can train this kind of weeping pattern to them. And you can see there's 2 in that picture. Nobody's going to complain about this. Nobody's even going to know what they're looking at. It looks like any random like small shrubs, and they're ever bearing. What does that mean, my friends? That means that the berries set, they turn red, then they turn black, then you eat them. And then later in the season, they do it again. Sometimes you get 3 flushes. And this particular varietal, again, is called Mora alba isai. Here's some things about that are wonderful. First of all, as long as you keep it good and healthy and well watered, the berries are like the size of like half your thumb. And they're delicious, out of hand, off the bush. They make incredible mead. If you make a mead with these, it's very analogous to like a Cabernet or not Merlot, a Zinfandel, right? You can get very close to that in your production of meads, using meads to boost the sugar content and using these berries that way. Jams, jellies. I've had cheese with these mulberries in them. That's freaking awesome. Because they're a lower bush, you're less likely to create exploding purple bird shit on Karen's car, because that will justifiably piss her off. By keeping them low, you get a lot less bird action as well. I actually have that in my notes. Keep it pruned below the bird usage level. And if you harvest it as they get ripe, you'll have, which you should do anyway, you'll have a lot less problems like that. Easy way to harvest them, as long as the Karens aren't going to notice, is throw a tarp under the tree and shake the shit out of it. Bundle up the tarp, dump it in a bucket. Do that once a day during the harvest season. You'll get only the most premium, ready to come off the tree berries that way, though I always find myself pulling them maybe a little ahead of time. But this is just a great tree. And mulberry, you know what I said about the figs and doing an espalier? You can prune mulberry into basically any form, height, or shape you want, and it doesn't have to necessarily be this variety. Just about any mulberry. I've seen mulberries like kind of pulled over and made into like an arch. And so you are walking it. Now, I don't know if that would work in the HOA front yard, but in the backyard, you could have an entrance area to a sitting area or a garden area or a pond area. And you can train them like that, or train 2 of them and actually graft them together. They're incredibly easy to work with, but they're not the easiest tree to propagate. They usually require like an intermittent mist system or something like that to propagate, though they do self-propagate with seed really, really easily. But this variety, propagation is easy as cut a softwood, good green softwood cutting, cut the leaves that are left on the cutting in half to reduce transpiration. You want maybe a 6 to 8 inch piece with about 3 to 4 leaves left on it. Again, leaves cut in half. Stick it in really wet soil, really, really moist, wet soil. Put it in the shade, and it'll probably root within 2 weeks. That means you can spread them all over Karen Town till everybody has one, and then nobody can bitch because you have one too. Just what I am, just what I'm trying to do is try to spread this stuff everywhere. And it is about staying within the rules, even though they're stupid. And the rules are mostly staying within patterns. The grass has to be 75% of the front yard. Trees can only, you can have 3 trees. We'll think really hard about that. That's not a tree. That's a bush. Does it say anything about bushes and shrubs? No. Grow your trees like bushes and shrubs. Don't let them look like trees. Karen doesn't know. What is that? That's a mulberry bush. It's an ornamental. And here's the other thing, right? Ornamental. Use the word ornamental. What is that? That's an ornamental squash. That's an ornamental pepper. That's an ornamental kale. That's an ornamental chard. That's an ornamental flower. That's an ornamental. That's a positive Karen terminology to use. And by the way, if you can, get the hell out of HOAs. Back when I did this topic originally, back in, I think it was 2018, It was easier, but you know what I said? It won't get any easier than it is now. I don't want to believe that's the case right now. I do want to believe that we are going to have some correction to the entire real estate menagerie, but I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet on it. So if you want out, I'm not telling you you have to leave or you're going to die or something stupid like that. If you want out, be on the look for the opportunity. And when the opportunity really presents itself, seize that opportunity. With that, before I answer your questions, let's talk about a few other things. I haven't really gotten to put this on the air yet. I think I mentioned it during one of the rewinds, and with my luck, it's probably the one that didn't get published right. But we added a new vendor to the MSB, the Member Support Brigade, right before I left, called Mushroom Mountain. I love this company, and I have done business with them many times. I have reached out to them before, and simply because I guess I always reach out during the busy season, I didn't hear back. I'm going to say something about other mushroom companies, and I'm not being mean. I'm just telling you the truth. I've tried to get a mushroom spawn company into the MSB for more than a decade. I don't know what it is. There just seems to be a certain weirdness there. I don't know if they're using their own special mushrooms. I don't know if I don't know the right approach. But in general, if I can get to a decision maker of a company and make them understand, you take money you would use for advertising. You advertise to a select group of people with a guaranteed ROI. It's a private area, and those people buy your stuff, and they might never know about you. It's like, oh, I'm in. It doesn't take. The mushroom thing was harder than getting a moonshine still company, which I finally did a couple years ago for you guys with Mile High Distilling. It was the hardest niche to crack. I got you guys 15% off everything at Mushroom Mountain. That's sawdust spawn, fruiting kits, extracts, their product, everything site-wide 15% off. She initially came back with 20% off, like 2 varieties of mushrooms. I'm like, nah, come on. I told her, I said, go 10 if you have to, but I want this at least all sawdust spawners. She's like, I can do 15 on everything if you think, oh, yes, do that. So that's what we have. That's a fantastic discount. Particularly, I like King Strophoria and Oyster. If you have mushroom questions, don't miss tomorrow. Olga, who is one of the owners of Mushroom Mountain, is actually going to be our guest tomorrow. So we'll be talking more about this then. Next up is today's item of the day. I was like, why not, since we're talking about landscaping with fruit, basically bring around the book, Landscaping with Fruit by Dr. Lee Reich. I had Lee on, I think back in 2011 or something like that. It was sub 1,000 episode of the show. I had Lee on. We had a great discussion. I love this book. It's on my bookshelf. It probably belongs on yours, especially if you want to go down the pathway that we went on today. And then last but not least today, remember, Laws of Life, my book, 5 years in the making and really 30 years in the making, is coming out on May the 12th. The ambassador program is closed, but Tom told me today that one person accidentally, and he did confirm it was an accident, signed up for the Platinum Ambassador spot twice. I have one Platinum Ambassador spot. That's somebody willing to buy 10 copies of this book sent to friends and family. I have one first person to email me with TSPC Ambassador in the subject line can have the spot. This gets you your name listed at the website for the book, which we haven't released the name of it yet, though some of you have found it. And you're ruining things with timing, so don't tell anybody else about it. But we do have one of those open. You'll get listed as a Platinum Ambassador there with a link of your choice to any site you want. I've had some people asking. I'm like, no, it's closed. And he told me today, yeah, it was one double sign up. So there is that. But now let us, as we have ornamental lettuce today, let us take your questions and comments. Legacy Farm says, build goodwill with your neighbors, get them to personally invested that you're doing. I delivered every one of my neighbors 2 dozen eggs. I have about 200 chickens free ranging. Yeah, in Karen land, that ain't going to happen, but I completely agree. I have a friend who lives, it's not an HOA, fortunately, but it is a very nice kind of upscale suburban neighborhood. And he actually built what looks like a retaining wall, and it's an outside chicken run. And they can actually get to the eggs from inside the house. and you can't tell it's a chicken run until you have to be on his property and almost to it to look in from the top and see the chickens living there. And their surrounding neighbors that would eventually find out they all get eggs, and their children aren't welcome to come over and get treasure, which means take some eggs for themselves. And they've been able to do that for years and years and years with no department of making you sad visits. So I completely agree. Whatever you can do, sharing food with people is a social construct as old as villages and towns and tribes, right? It's older than what we think of as civilization. Like groups of people sharing food with each other to build relationships and strengthen relationships. If you're secure in food and your neighbors are secure in food, then you're one more step toward liberty as a whole. Joneswald says, do you think biochar would be a good way to improve soil in my yard for better grass now and future garden space later? If so, how would you apply it for a big area without disruption? Ooh, without disruption. I honestly think that you're talking about a yard. American Biochar makes a liquefied biochar product, and I would look at that. Non-disturbance of an existing yard. You can do some with broadcasting. Like if I was going to try to get the benefits of biochar into a lawn, I would get aerator, which is a good lawn practice anyway. You can either get the roller ones, or like if it's not the big yard, the ones that you wear on your shoes and you run around, and make a really good high quality bioreactor type compost with the biochar in it and broadcast that annually and water it in. That should work really, really well for you. But the easy button for that is the liquid biochar from American Biochar. It's ambiochar.com. Next up, we have Halheem. Consider learning the Latin names of plants. It makes the plants sound super impressive if someone comes asking. I love it. I love it. It makes me think of, I used to be part of a Yahoo email list when people use those things. This is, early days of the internet. This is like late 90s. And as some of you know, I was like a cult fanatic, and there was a lot of us of the NEF single shot handy rifle. And a guy one day posts this whole soliloquy about this new round that you could get, but it actually wasn't new. This new round that you could get, it was an old round that you could now get in your NEF handy rifle. He called it a 7.62 by something R. And all that, almost is, is slower than the 3006, and just a little slower than the 300 Savage, but a rimmed cartridge, low recoil, did all this wonderful shit. And in the end, he's like, you want one? And you're really like, I really do. It's a 30-30 Winchester. He just used its European designation. So I love that one. What is that? If I had my groundnut growing and all this sprawling stuff, it kind of looks like Wandering Jew or something. What is that? That's Apius americana, right? that mulberry. What is that? That's Amora alba Isai. Very rare, right? That's actually brilliant. That's a brilliant social design consideration. Well done, sir. Legacy Farm and Homestead. Where do you buy the escargot? Grocery store. Specifically, Menards, something like that is the name of the place. Wegmans. Wegmans was the place around here that you could get them, but they're closed now. But you can usually find them wherever the sardines and shit like that are. But you'll notice that they'll have two options. One are for people who want to have a dinner party, and they give you this big bag of freaking snail shells, and you're supposed to put the snails back in the shell when you serve them. There's no need for that, and it costs more. So you should be able to find them. They'll be in a can that's about the size of the bigger can of the PVC cement, except it doesn't have that little screw top on it, but it'll be about that size. And if you go to a grocery store and they don't have them, then you need to go to a different grocery store. And I guarantee you can find them where? Amazon, right? Amazon.com. But go to T-Spaz first if you do that. Maybe I'll look for my favorite. You know what? They did. No, it wasn't Wegmans. It was Brookshire's. And they closed that freaking Brookshire's last year down here, and I can't get them anywhere. I need to find them on Amazon for me and put them on T-Spaz, so I'll do that for you. Joneswald, any suggestions for nut bushes or similar, hazelnuts or coppice hickory? Forget hickory. Forget pecans. You could do almond if you could have a full-size tree, and that would work if it works in your environment, because basically almond and peach are really the same thing, bred differently. Hazelnut may work. I have had no personal luck with hazelnut. So my gut is that unless you can have a full-size tree, nuts are probably not really where you need to be looking with things like that. Anyway, with that, let's go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank all of you guys for hanging out with me today. Again, I want to remind you, we do have Olga from Mushroom Mountain. She'll be with us tomorrow, and we will be talking about mushrooms from multiple standpoints. We're going to talk about, yes, how you can grow mushrooms at home. Sometimes you can actually, grow those mushrooms in like a cabinet or something, or a closet in your house or outside. We're also going to be talking about using mushrooms like beluit and King Strophoria and oyster to actually improve fertility in your garden. I personally use Strophoria and oyster in my bioreactors to improve the results of my bioreactor compost. So come tune in tomorrow in the live stream. We're going to have a great guest on a really cool topic, and that adds even more diversity to what you're doing. Jesse says almond can be grafted onto some peaches. Almond can be grafted onto all peaches, and peaches can be grafted onto all almonds. Again, they're just basically the same tree with a different breeding pathway to get to the type of production that they have. So anyway, tune in tomorrow. Thanks for everybody for tuning in today. Have a great day. If you ever want to ask a question or suggest a topic or just get in touch with me, I have one email. There's no super secret email. I don't have a personal assistant in Bangalore. You have to get through jack@thesurvivalpodcast.com. It'll come right to me. If you follow certain rules, it'd be more likely to be taken seriously and read fully. And that is TSPC in the subject line. That's how I'll pull you out of the spam folder. If you never emailed me before, you probably will end up there. So then I'll never know if you don't do that. And then your question or your comment should be in a single sentence. Your subject should be spot on to what you're talking about. Hit return a couple times, and then give me all the details you want. And when you give me details, if it's long, I may not read it. But I guarantee you I won't read it if you don't put paragraph breaks in it. If you send me a giant wall of text with no paragraph breaks in it, it hurts my eyes, and I delete it. I don't even apologize for it. I've said it for, 17 years now. Anyway, guys, catch you tomorrow. And Bonnie Blue says on the way out, hit that thumbs up. Please do that. Hey, you guys can do something else for me. You guys talk to each other a lot in the live stream, and that's awesome. Before you blow out today, there's still over 50 of you here. Do me a favor, leave a comment. You leaving comments is one of the signals to Google, YouTube to make this video available to others who are watching similar related content. That helps me reach more people, which helps our community get stronger. Take care, guys. Again, I'll catch you.